The president of the United States says we have to go after the enemy within, and that if he loses an election, it's because it was rigged, his words, that the idea that we put uniformed military surrounding polling locations, for you to not understand what that means to the American public, the playbook of authoritarianism that I've seen as a CIA officer play out over and over and over again in other countries, for you not to understand that that sends a shiver down the spine of every American, and should, whether you're a Democrat or Republican, that's why there's a trust deficit, is because there are some circumstances in which you would use the military in the middle of our democracy like that. And I continue to believe it's not our uniformed military that have a problem, it's the leaders who are directing them and these missions.
What happens when a conversation about national security turns into a deeper argument about the Constitution itself? In this hearing, Elise Slotkin raises concerns about the use of military presence inside the United States. But Senator Tim Sheehy steps in with a very different perspective, one grounded in security, service, and what he believes Americans are actually facing right now. You're watching Capitol Review. If you value straight talk and real insight into what's happening in Washington, take a moment to like, subscribe, and share so more people can stay informed.
I always find it interesting when constitutional scholars and law of the sea scholars parachute from the rafters during every Trump decision. But we're not a legal body. We're a political body. So if you want a legal body, there's one a block away of white marble. It's a beautiful building. We're a policy body. We're a political body. But just to set the record straight, to your knowledge, Mr. Young, has the president issued any illegal orders, or have illegal orders been followed in the course of the National Guard deployments to our southern border and our cities?
Senator, no, the president has not issued any illegal orders, and the Ninth Circuit has ruled in that favor.
And is the influence of transnational criminal organizations that fill our country with fentanyl, poison, various other drugs, illicit activity, human trafficking, is that a national security threat?
Yes, sir, it is. And as I said, I think we are responding to that very well in cooperation with the Department of Homeland Security.
So therefore, under a national security threat, which is unquestionably being fueled by foreign powers that do not want American values to succeed, co-opting transnational criminal organizations, they are actively attacking this country using illegal immigration, using transnational crime, and using drugs to do so. Would that be a correct statement?
It is, yes, sir.
So 70,000 Americans-ish a year are dying from fentanyl-related overdoses, are being trafficked, are being murdered and thrown under bridges by illegal immigrants and the criminal organizations related to those. That sounds like a pretty big emergency. You and I went to war for 20 plus years when 5,000 Americans were killed on and around 9/11. The number is much higher now, as they've unfortunately died from mesothelioma and other sicknesses related to what happened on 9/11, our first responders and more. I think we're almost 7,000 now, as those cancers have taken many lives. So we've settled the legal questions. What we're talking about is politics. What we're talking about is we're being told that 3 to 5 to 700, call the number whatever it is, honorable young Americans who've asked to join the military, raise their right hand, who are volunteering for these deployments, we're being told that them walking the streets, protecting Americans from being mugged, from being carjacked, like our congressmen are 2 blocks away from here. Like one of my staffers was clubbed over the head a few months ago in the ICU, woke up, stripped of all valuables. Apparently, these guardsmen on our street are a greater threat to this nation than the tens of millions of illegal immigrants that were welcomed to this country in the Biden administration. The Biden administration selectively opened our border. It was a choice. They made the choice to do that. It wasn't an accident. It was a decision that they made. And the Venezuelan boat drivers who want to bring poison to this country, they made a choice to get in that boat and drive it here. And we are making the choice, the American people made the choice last year that they're sick of it. They're tired of it, and they want an end to put to this disgusting policy that has led to the deaths of hundreds of thousands of Americans. So I think it's an absolute disgrace that we are impugning the integrity of our people in uniform, the integrity of this administration, and the will of the American people to live safely on their own streets. The Constitution says life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. The American people have a right to expect their government will protect them from being murdered in the street. So I'm sick and tired of the constitutional lawyers parachuting out of the rafters every day when we are doing exactly what the American people asked us to do. If a legal order is given by the Supreme Court that this is wrong, I can promise you the administration will follow it. I hope they do, and I would expect them to. But thus far, a year into this administration, that hasn't happened, and the American people asked to be protected from these threats, and you're doing that. Thank you.
Now, one of the fears where things really get interesting. Slotkin's argument is rooted in caution. She warns that placing uniformed military forces in civilian settings, even with good intentions, can send a message that feels uncomfortable to the public. From her point of view, history shows that when governments blur that line, trust can erode. And to be fair, that concern deserves to be heard. In a country built on freedom, perception matters just as much as policy. But then Sheehy comes in, and this is where, in my view, the conversation finally shifts back to reality. He doesn't see the military as the issue. He sees a country dealing with real, immediate threats that aren't theoretical. They're happening every single day. He presses a simple but powerful point. No illegal orders have been issued, and the courts haven't found wrongdoing. That matters, because in a system built on law, facts should come before fear. Then he goes deeper. He brings up transnational criminal organizations, groups that are moving fentanyl into the country, fueling addiction, crime, and tragedy in communities across America. We're not talking about small numbers here. We're talking about tens of thousands of lives lost every year, families destroyed, communities shaken. And from a Republican perspective, this is where the frustration really sets in, because while Washington debates hypotheticals, Americans are dealing with consequences. Sheehy's argument is straightforward. The first responsibility of government is to protect its people, not in theory, not in speeches, in reality. And honestly, that's a point that resonates. He also defends the men and women in uniform, reminding everyone that they don't serve a political party, they serve the Constitution. As someone who values that principle, I think that's an important line to draw. Questioning policy is fair, but questioning the integrity of those who step up to serve is something a lot of Americans won't accept lightly. What you're really seeing in this moment is a clash of priorities. On one side, there's a focus on preventing potential overreach, making sure power is never misused. On the other side, there's a focus on immediate threats, crime, border security, and the safety of everyday Americans. And if I'm being honest, I think more Americans right now are worried about what's happening in their neighborhoods than what might happen in theory. That doesn't mean the Constitution isn't important. It absolutely is. But it also means safety and order can't be pushed aside while we argue about perception. At the end of the day, this debate leaves you with a simple but powerful question. What should come first right now? Guarding against possible future risks or confronting the real dangers already in front of us? This is Capitol Review. If you appreciate balanced breakdowns with a clear perspective, make sure you like, subscribe, and share so more people can join the conversation.